Welcome, Ani, to the IWA channel, Astro Inudabi, Oneness in Astrology and Spirituality. How are you today?
Namaste, Abhi. I am well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's a full moon today, so I'm hoping the questions are in relation to the full moon or anything related to the moon.
Yes, so um, Abhi, you have done um TikTok lives based on the full moon and the new moon and
Mm,
how it impacts on all the zodiac signs. So, I think it would be a nice opportunity today if you can explain what a full moon is or what the phases of the moon are.
okay.
Um, yes,
Let's see
that's
if
my
I can.
question.
I've never done a full session on this on my TikTok lives, eh?
No, 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 not explaining it fully.
Mm,
Yes, as I indicated before, it's like you've spoke about the full moon or new moon and its impact on the astrological or zodiac signs, but going in depth, a little bit
okay.
more in depth
All
on
right.
what the full moon is
Mm,
or what the new moon is,
okay.
those phases.
Okay. The phases of
Mm.
all the 8 phases. Okay, I understand the question now fully. So you want an in-depth explanation of the the moon phases in order. Okay. Um.
Yes.
Okay. As a moonologist, the study of the moon is something that goes back into astrology. It ties back into astrology, the whole Rasi, the moonological chart. One has to understand the moon phases to understand astrology more deeper. So I would like to classify the phases in order, the 8 phases, the 8 moon phases of a lunar month. So these are can be divided into 4 primary and 4 intermediate, the waxing and waning. And I think this is something that you've heard me
Mm.
talk about a lot, the waxing and the waning. So we always start off with the
Yeah.
new moon. We always start off with the new moon. Primarily, primary moon
Mm.
phases happen at a specific moment in time. So while the time between these moments are the intermediate moon phases, the lunar cycle lasts about 29.5 days, just under a calendar month. So
Mm.
a new moon being the primary phase, right? The moon rises around sunrise, moon set around sunset. So the moon rise
Mm.
around sunrise and the moon set around sunset in a new moon. So if somebody is
Okay.
looking at the position in space, the moon in between the sun and earth, that's the position in space. The moon is in between, or is between the sun and earth. So if the moon's path crosses the plane of Earth's orbit around the sun, the ecliptic, while the sun, moon, and earth are aligned at the new moon, a solar eclipse happens somewhere in the world. So a new moon is the first phase or the primary phase, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't get too much invested in that. It might sound confusing. I'm trying my best to talk about this, or explain this in the most comprehensible way. Um, we go into the intermediate, the waxing crescent moon. So the moon rise in the morning and the
Mm-hmm.
moon set in the afternoon. So if you look at the orientation part of it, the lit part appears on the right side in the northern hemisphere, and definitely the left side in the southern hemisphere. So we'll see the left side in South Africa. The position in space, I'm sure
Mm.
they're seeing it moving from the new moon to the first quarter moon. So the crescent phases can be a good time to see the Earth shine, where sunlight reflected from Earth gives the dark areas of the moon like a faint glow. Hmm? So the waxing
Mm.
crescent is the intermediate phase. The first quarter moon or half moon, I think a lot of people know it as a half moon. It's a primary phase.
Mm.
Um, this lit up part appears on the right side in the northern hemisphere and the left side in the southern hemisphere. So if you're looking at from space, I'm sure they'll find it. They can see like the moon has like 1/4 of the way around the Earth, like a quarter of it. So
Mm.
this is the half moon, the first quarter moon, the half moon. Then we have the waxing moon, the intermediate phase.
Mm-hmm.
Waxing. A lot of people have heard this, but it's very easily to understand. A couple of days into the waxing and a couple of days into the waning. The moon rises in afternoon and the moon sets early morning. You'd have seen this, where you'll still find the moon's
Mm-hmm.
presence in the morning. That's a
Yes.
waxing moon. Then we move into
Okay.
the full moon, where the moon rises around sunset. This is common with a lot of people, they've seen this. And the moon set around
Mm-hmm.
sunrise. So here illumination
Oh.
is 100%. So if the moon's path crosses the plane of Earth's orbit around the sun, while the sun, Earth, and moon are aligned at the full moon, here you'll find a lunar eclipse. So I've explained earlier on during the new moon in the primary phase,
Yeah.
right, where you get a solar eclipse, how a solar eclipse is formed. If the moon's path crosses the plane of Earth's orbit around the sun, while the sun, moon, and Earth are aligned at a new moon, a solar eclipse happens somewhere in the world. And a lunar eclipse happens
Mm.
during a full moon. So a solar eclipse on a new moon and a lunar eclipse in a full moon. If the moon's path crosses the
Okay.
plane of Earth's orbit around the sun, while the sun, Earth, and moon are aligned during the full moon, then a lunar eclipse is formed. Then we go into the waning moon. So here, the lit part of it appears on the left side of the northern hemisphere and the right side in the southern hemisphere. So we are always seeing the waning moon from our position in South Africa.
Mm.
The moon will still look quite full a few days after the full moon. So we will be going
Mm.
into the waning moon in a couple of days' time. Hmm?
Okay.
Because we are on a full moon now. So is it making sense?
Yes, yes, it's making sense.
So from here we go on to the third quarter moon.
Yeah.
This moon rises around midnight and it sets around midday. If we have to look at the orientation of it, the lit part appears on the left side on the northern hemisphere. We are in the southern hemisphere, so we will see the right side of it. So you'll see the right side of it from our point.
Mm.
This is the half moon, third quarter moon. And then we move on to the last or the eighth phase, the waning or the crescent moon. I'm not sure what other astrologers or numerologists call them, but I call it the waning moon.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I've seen people call it the waning crescent moon. Some people call it the crescent moon. Doesn't really matter, as long as the understanding of it and how to use its energies is there. That's important. So the waning crescent moon, the lit part appears on the left-hand side in the northern hemisphere and the right side in the southern hemisphere, same like the third quarter moon. The crescent
Mm.
phase can be a good time to see the earth shine. When sunlight reflected from earth gives the dark areas of the moon a faint glow. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people will be able to see the waning crescent moon or the waning moon. People have seen it, they
Mm.
just don't know what it's called, or they don't know how to harness its energy or how to work with its energy or use it to its full potential. I would always say during a waning crescent moon, it's it's not a good time to start anything new.
Okay.
I would say during um, a a waxing moon, this is a good time. This is a good time to let go of certain habits.
Mm.
It's a good time to do a lot of reflection. It's a good time to do a lot of retrospection, introspection. Basically, it's a good time. It's a good time to ask the self many questions. Why am I doing this? What do I get out of it? What is it bringing me? In fact, leave the moon's phases out.
Mm.
Um, if one is consistently engaging with introspection, retrospection, if one is fully engaged with not identifying the self with the mind, remember the mind is governed by the moon. If one
Mm.
is not entangled with the mind, then one doesn't need to worry about the moon. But most people are entangled with the mind. Most people believe they are the mind. So the moon definitely have a full impact on you. Remember,
Mm.
the moon also impacts the phases of a woman's cycle, and it's
Mm.
very important to understand that if you are such a being where you are finding it difficult to control your thoughts, which brings about a certain kind of emotion which offsets you, then leave alone the different phases of the moon. It's a good time to surrender the mind and to silence the mind. When you are silencing the mind over a considerable period of time, it becomes an unconscious happening. And when this becomes an unconscious happening, it doesn't matter whether it's a new moon or a full moon or what have you. It just becomes a bit more difficult to surrender the mind, but nevertheless, it's done. It just takes you a longer time to do it. There's nothing for you to be concerned about. But I think a lot of concerns come into play because fundamentally we are all struggling the mind. That's what we are struggling.
Mm.
And this is the reason why we want to dissect the different phases of the moon. Remember, the moon's phases are our mood swings. You know, when you say you have mood swings, this is basically the moon's
Yes.
phases, the subconscious mind. Whilst the sun is the conscious mind, the moon is the subconscious mind. Therefore, at night, all these lovely ideas you think of, and during the day, it's more or less fight or flight mode. But nevertheless, that's a topic for another podcast. I hope I've done some kind of justice to such a question. It's not difficult to understand the different phases. I think it becomes difficult to pinpoint exactly what phase we're in if you are not into this kind of sciences, and you don't need to understand this kind of science to harness its full potential. Like what I've explained about detaching or untangling the self with the mind. If you can just do that, practice
Mm.
the detachment from the mind or being aware of the mind, then you don't need to worry about these kind of things.
Okay. Can
This
I
is the
understand?
reason
That is
why
very interesting.
I've been a strong advocate for um, being a witness to the mind. Therefore, I haven't explained all of these
Mm.
things in detail. Yeah? Now you can
Yeah,
understand.
I hear you.
Okay. Thank
Yes.
you, Mani. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. At least now I understand sometimes why they talk about, the quarter moon. We see it sometimes in our diaries and so forth, and I didn't understand why they talk about these phases. At least I understand what it means now. So thank
100%.
you, Abby. Yeah,
100%. It's only a
thank you,
pleasure,
Abby.
Mani.
Hmm.
Look after yourself
Okay, thank you
till
so much.
we
You
till we
too.
meet again. Thank you. Jai Shri Ram. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Jai Shri Ram.